Welcome back to another episode of the W Sports Podcast. I am your host, Tubby, and we are going to get into some NFL Week 4 recap. And we had a few wild games and some crazy just rookies. We had a big rookie game today, and maybe we have seen the likes of a new franchise quarterback in the NFL. But we're going to start it off with our first game of this week, and it was the Cowboys versus the Giants. The Cowboys come out with the win, but it was not a very convincing win. The defense for the Cowboys, rush defense, played incredibly well this week, and I was surprised. But they still somehow lost the time of possession by 7 minutes while only giving up something like 40 some yards rushing. Daniel Jones really had a good game. Honestly, he had a good game. Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson tore up that secondary for the Dallas Cowboys. But somehow they were, the Giants, they had a chance at the end. Neighbors drops the ball on the sideline, and that was pretty much all she wrote. But the Cowboys, there still just seems to be something missing with this team. They seem like they're not quite on the same wavelength. I mean, CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott do not seem like they are gelling too well on the sidelines or anything right now, and that would lead me to some concerns if I'm a Cowboys fan or Jerry Jones or even Mike McCarthy. But really, I think it comes down to like this defense is supposed to be one of the best defenses in the NFL, and now you lose Micah Parsons for 2 to 4 weeks, your best defensive player. Yeah, you've had issues stopping the run. Well, you stopped the run this week, but you let Daniel Jones really throw the ball kind of at will this week. A quarterback that's not really great and hasn't played great, but man, those two wide receivers and Daniel Jones really lit you up, and somehow you come out with the win, but it was not a convincing win at all. I think there are some concerns for the Cowboys because this defense does not look good at all compared to what I think a lot of us expected and compared to what happened week 1. But that was the Browns, and we have seen that the Browns offense is just a real bad. And so it doesn't help the Cowboys case at all because the Cowboys defense, I mean, since then has not really played great, and it had been the run, but this week it was the pass because they stopped the run, but they sold out too much to stop the run that they gave up the passing yards. Luckily for them, they won, but still, I think there's something going on in Dallas, and it's not looking great right now for the Dallas Cowboys. The Jags fall to 0-4 to start the season. If you said the Jags were 0-4, I would have thought you're crazy. Maybe 2-2 with the early schedule, but 0-4 is rough. And I think we have to ask ourselves, and I mentioned this last week, when do we start questioning Doug Peterson as the quarterback whisperer that he is supposed to be? Yeah, Trevor Lawrence played solid, but that defense is brutal. And Trevor Lawrence had 168 yards, a couple touchdowns, but it wasn't anything spectacular. We haven't seen Trevor Lawrence take that step forward that we all expected. I expected it last year, and he really, I think, regressed compared to the year before. And I think he's taken a step back again. Brian Thomas showed up. He played really well for them, but that defense is really, really, really bad. Gave up 435 yards this week to the Texans. The time of possession, almost 7 minutes. I don't know where you go from here if you're the Jags. You have to question, if Doug Peterson is the guy and maybe make a change, which sounds crazy because he took them to the playoffs his first year, but last year they regressed. They got worse. They didn't make the playoffs when everyone thought they were a sure lock to win the AFC South, and they did not. And now we're talking about a team starting 0-4 to start the season, and your franchise quarterback, the guy that you just paid to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, has not shown up this year and has not looked like a franchise quarterback and hasn't looked like a top 5 or top 3 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. There has to be somewhere a question whether it's maybe Trevor Lawrence just isn't as good as we thought he was going to be, or is Doug Peterson not the coach that we thought? Is Doug Peterson not the quarterback whisperer we all, or not all, a lot of people, thought he was. And maybe he's just a better offensive coordinator than he is a head coach. And that's where he needs to stay and focus solely on the offense and on a guy like Trevor Lawrence. But right now, 0-4, Jaguars are more than likely, I'm not going to say more likely, they're not going to make the playoffs because there's never been a team 0-4 make the playoffs. There's only been one team ever that started 0-3 to make the playoffs. So I don't see them making the playoffs. I think their season is basically done. And really all you can do now is try to find some way to have some resemblance of hope at the end of the season that Trevor Lawrence has gotten better and that this team can potentially perform next year. And whether or not Doug Peterson's the guy, I don't think so. I had my questions about Trevor Lawrence in the offseason. I brought them up, in our predictions. But yeah, it's not looking good for them, and I think the season's done. The Bears secure their second win. Caleb Williams did what he was supposed to do and did not turn the football over. Didn't have the best statistical numbers. Threw a touchdown, but he did not turn over the football, which has been his kryptonite all season, is turning the football over, making those rookie mistakes, throwing it to the other team, fumbling in the pocket. He looked more prepared for this game than he has all season. I think there's some hope right now if you're the Bears that you got 2 wins and your quarterback hasn't played, really great in any of those, that they're if he can find something, man, this team could really be a problem. Defense, they didn't play super great, but they did when it mattered the most with that big interception at late in the game of Matthew Stafford to pretty much seal up that game. Now the Bears are sitting at 2-2, along with the Green Bay Packers, who had lost today, and the Vikings moved to 4-0. I don't think anyone had the Vikings at 4-0, even if you are a Vikings fan, had the Vikings at 4-0 to start the season, and Sam Darnold doing what Sam Darnold is doing this year. They are a lot better than I gave them credit for. They are a lot better than I thought they would be this year. But it took 4 turnovers and 2 missed field goals for you to beat the Packers by 2 points. So don't let it go to your head yet. You almost blew a 28-0 lead. The Packers almost came back. If you're the Packers, it's Jordan Love's first game back. A couple of those interceptions, one of those interceptions was not his fault. The one late was a terrible play, terrible decision. Should have kept it, should have taken the sack. But the Packers just, were without 2 of their top corners this week, which definitely came into play early on in the game. But I can't take nothing away from the Vikings. They dominated the first 3 quarters of that game and did exactly what they needed to do to win. And like I said, I'm eating crow. I bragged and I thought, the Packers are going to, come in here and smack down the Vikings. I was wrong. The Vikings defense, for the most part, is for real. They have found something in this defense. Brian Flores is probably the biggest person I think that you have to give credit to, because if that defense isn't as good as it is, they may not be 4-0 because they have played a really tough schedule early on. And like I said, Sam Darnold, outside of the 1 turnover, he had 3 touchdowns against a really good Packers defense who has done a really good job at taking the ball away and only gave up 1. So if you're a Vikings fan right now, you are elated with the way the season has started, and you just hope that it keeps on going. The Bengals get their first win of the season against the Panthers. But for the Bengals, you do not start 0-4. Joe Burrow looked like Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase looked like Jamar Chase, and we saw some resemblance of T. Higgins. But the biggest thing for this game was the breakout of Chase Brown. I was hoping to see it at some point this year, and it came sooner than I thought. I thought Zach Moss would have the game. Zach Moss had a solid game, but it was Chase Brown. They may have finally found their running back to replace Joe Mixon. But the biggest question I think from this game comes out is, if you are the Panthers and you are talking about trading Bryce Young, has Andy Dalton just absolutely stunted the trade value for Bryce Young? Because what Andy Dalton is doing with the same team that Bryce Young couldn't do nothing with, granted, he's 1-1, but in one game, he scored more points than they did the first 2 games that Bryce Young started. And then they turn around and score 24 points again this week. all you're doing right now with Andy Dalton playing as good as he is killing the trade value for Bryce Young. And it's not helping you whatsoever if that is your go-to is to trade Bryce Young at some point this season or this offseason. It is not helping his value whatsoever or your return, and you're going to look like another loser in the trade. The the Bucs bounce back after the crazy just smackdown they took from the Broncos last week. And Baker Mayfield looked like the Baker Mayfield from the first 2 weeks. And he put on a show early on, 357 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Eagles defense is not good. Jalen Hurts looked rough most of this game, but you are without Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, and Lane Johnson. That's not going to help whatsoever. But that Bucs defense was getting to Jalen Hurts all the game and putting the pressure on him. Couple forced fumbles, an interception. Eagles, you still got some questions. Yeah, you beat the Saints last week, but man, this team just looks so dysfunctional right now. It looks a lot like last year, but you're not starting the season 8-0 and then just having the absolute fall off that you had. You're 2-2, and it's just kind of polar opposites each week. We don't know which team we're getting, and we don't know, which offense we're getting. Honestly, this offense has looked weird. I thought Kellen Moore would help this offense out a whole lot more. Saquon has still looked like Saquon. Saquon's really the only constant in this team, I guess, outside of the bad defense. The Broncos get their second win in one of the most ugly games I've seen in a long time. Bo Nix at one point in the first half had 7 completions on 15 attempts for -7 yards. Ended up with passing for 60 yards and somehow winning this game. The Jets, I don't know where Breece Hall was. I think he didn't get the memo that he was supposed to run the football forward and not backwards this week. But I was right. Do not play Aaron Rodgers or Garrett Wilson because they both played bad, and Patrick Surtain, for the most part, outside of a 20-yard catch, shut down Garrett Wilson. And I think the Jets, the big question for you is you are not getting the Aaron Rodgers you were hoping. And it was evidence that this was going to be the thing with him coming back from Achilles, being 40. But Aaron Rodgers is not the Aaron Rodgers that we know of. And we knew of even the last time outside of the one game he played last year. The last season with Green Bay, he was not great. And you could see the signs of him regressing, and they are getting worse. And right now you were thinking, oh, well, we just need a halfway competent quarterback and we'll win. Well, this looks like exactly what we've seen the last 2 years where your defense plays great, but your quarterback could not get it done. Aaron Rodgers could not get it done. Yeah, you had some crappy weather, but Aaron Rodgers has played in worse weather and won games in the playoffs, and he could not get it done against the Broncos in week 4 of the season. I think there's a lot of concern with the way this offense has looked right now, and Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, the whole buddy thing that they had the first year does not seem to be the same right now. They seem like they are at each other's throat a lot on the sideline, and it just goes to show Nathaniel Hackett is a terrible offensive coordinator. The Commanders, they are the team I was talking about early about finding their franchise quarterback. Jayden Daniels looked incredible in their absolute rout of the Cardinals today. Back-to-back games where Jayden Daniels has just went out and balled out and had that offense just moving. He right now is the clear-cut, not even close rookie of the year. And granted, it is only week 4, but man, if you can keep this kid upright and he keeps playing the way he does, we know when he gets the confidence that he can make throws and we know he can run and we know he can throw. Just look at his season last year at LSU and his Heisman Trophy winning campaign. This kid is for real. And I think this quarterback class, if they pan out the way I think, this is going to go down as one of the greatest drafts we've seen in NFL history. So congratulations to the Commanders on finding your franchise quarterback and getting another win. And then we're going to close it out with Jimothy's Kansas City Chiefs. You get your ninth straight win, but it didn't come with some serious consequences with the potential of Rashee Rice missing a considerable amount of time. That injury did not look good. Patrick Mahomes, you took out your only target so far this year by trying to make a tackle after you threw an interception. if Rashee Rice is out with Hollywood Brown being down, now your top wide receiver, you're hoping that it is going to be a rookie who, outside of week one, has not shown any signs of being productive right now, or Juju Smith-Schuster, who got cut by the Patriots because his knee was about to explode. Because we haven't seen Travis Kelce be Travis Kelce. He doesn't quite have the same quickness, not the same separation, and that offense line has not looked good. So now you are down potentially Pacheco for a considerable amount of time, and Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown. Watch out. There might be a couple rough weeks coming ahead for the Chiefs, but you do get the win. You do move to 4-0. But if Rashee Rice is out, you might be in some trouble coming up. But it is Patrick Mahomes. We have seen him succeed when he had no weapons. Kareem Hunt at least looked really good today for the most part, when he got his carries. So maybe that can be something you can lean on, but don't count on it because he is older. And so if Rashee Rice is out, as ugly as it looked, Andy Reid did not seem too confident that we were going to see him anytime soon. Hopefully for them, he is not out too long or not out for a significant amount of time, because if he is, your wide receiver group is pretty pathetic. But that's going to be it for the NFL recap. Remember, October is coming. And when October comes, that means jersey giveaways. We are starting our giveaway extravaganza starting in October, giving away a signed jersey every single month for the foreseeable future. So you're going to want to make sure you are subscribed to the W Sports Podcast YouTube channel, because that's the only way to get in. So you better go right now, hit that subscribe button so you are entered for the giveaway. And remember, the most important thing, you've just got to listen. See ya.